Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you are tuning in. Welcome to Run It Back, episode number 47. I'm your host, Menelik Fernandez. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate. So the premise of Run It Back and the way that I start Run It Back has been the same every week. So as always, I will start it the same as I have every week. Basically, on Run It Back, we take teams that have played in a prior matchup and we run it back, so to speak, where we spend some time talking about the preparation of the game. We spend some time talking about the scouting process. We spend time talking about how we construct matchups, what video we watch, all that kind of fun stuff. So for today, we are looking at U of T versus Ryerson. We're going north of the border to my hometown of Toronto. These are the two bigger schools in Toronto. They are located geographically very close to each other, and there is a bit of a rivalry between them. The game took place November 27th in 2019. I was actually at this game. And similar to many of our episodes of Run It Back, we have a coach from one of the teams join us and we take on the game from that perspective. So today we are very fortunate to have the full-time lead assistant coach at U of T join us, and we're going to take on this game from the University of Toronto's perspective. So Mike, if you give me a second, I'll try and do you a little bit of justice with a nice warm introduction here. Thank you so much for joining us. So Mike Giorgio has been at U of T for as long as I can remember. He completed a very illustrious playing career in 2008. He was the team captain. He was a starter long term. He was an MVP. He was an academic All-Canadian. He was a first-team All-Star in one of these years that he was there. And then since graduating, he's been the lead assistant coach at U of T, which began in the 2008-2009 season. Mike also garners a tremendous amount of respect in the city of Toronto because he does so much community work. He dedicates, an immense amount of his time towards running U of T's summer league, along with volunteering for numerous basketball camps and various clubs throughout the years. And now he's actually started with a couple of his friends a very interesting podcast called the Basketball Mood Podcast, which I believe is working on episode number 9 currently. I'll put the link in the description for that. Mike,
Perfect.
Thanks so much for joining. I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, glad to be on. It's always good to get some perspectives and take a look back on some of the stuff that we've done so we can move forward.
For sure. As I mentioned, this is a game that I was at, and this is also a game that I have had the good fortune of coaching a lot of players that have been in this game. So it's kind of an interesting one to watch and go through. So let's start sort of from the top. I'll give a brief rundown sort of the leagues in Canada for those who don't know. We have 2 college university leagues up here. College and university are not synonymous. So the college league, which I coach in, is the CCCA, and the university league, which I have prior experience to and which Mike is in, is now called U Sports, formerly called the CIS, and is of the 2 is usually considered the superior. It's our Division 1, in my opinion. That being said, this game is a regular season conference game, a rivalry type game. You're playing them for the first time of the season. You're 4 days out from taking on UOIT. When do you start the scout? What are you looking at? How many games are you watching? Take us through your process.
Yeah. So typically we start the scout the day after. So most of our games fall on Fridays or Saturdays. And this one is actually, it's unique in the sense that it wasn't a back-to-back game. So this was a standalone game for the week. And so we were able to put a lot more resources into just preparing for this team, obviously.
Right.
We're pretty familiar with them. We play them twice a year, every year, at least, if not 3, if we meet them in an exhibition or a tournament somewhere. Right. So we are familiar with them. We're familiar with their personnel. So typically we'll start the day after the UOIT game and we'll watch, 2 games for sure. And then try to find somebody who plays similar to us to get a good idea of how they're going to handle some of the things that we do. So typically in our league, teams vary in their play style. So if we're going to go look at a very athletic team that doesn't shoot much, that doesn't run a lot of stuff, like that's not what we are. So we don't want to see them play against those type of teams. We want to see them play against the teams that play the same style as us. So that gives us a better idea of A, how they're going to handle us, B, what they're going to look to exploit, and C, just sort of give us an idea of what their game plan is going to be coming in to this standalone game.
Love it. So in terms of the film, what specifically are you looking at? Are you looking at actions that they run? Are you looking at matchups? And then how is all of that presented among your staff, among your players? What are you giving your guys? What are you looking for in the whole process?
Yeah, so one of our staff members will be in charge of this scout, but like I said, usually one person takes one game in a weekend and the other person takes the other game, and then sort of we come together as a meet to formulate a game plan, basically. But for this game, we all kind of did our own thing and then kind of met with an idea, of, okay, this is what we want to get at. This is what they do, so we're looking at actions for sure. We're looking at matchups. They got a big guy in the middle who now plays at Florida State, who was sort of, we were real focused on that matchup for sure, how we were going to take him out of the game. And he had dominated a couple games prior after starting the season injured. So he was just coming back, but he had dominated in his return. And one of the good things is we get to watch them play the same teams that we had just played on the weekend. So they had played UIT and Queens just like we had. So we have a fresh idea of those teams and how they were going to handle those teams. So that helps us a little bit. And I think in general, what we're looking at is, what do we do well and where can we exploit what they do weak, like what their weaknesses are? How do we exploit them? And what are we looking to really emphasize to the players? And that'll start, this was a Wednesday night, so that'll start Monday, Monday practice. It'll start on Monday. We'll do breakdowns. We'll do small group, per hoop. Every hoop has a small group, and we're looking at concepts of what we want to work on. That's sort of big picture. And then specifically, what we had talked about in this game was coming baseline double on the big guy for sure. And so we worked a little bit on that. We worked on that in small groups, and then we brought it to a team set. We don't look at their sets until, maybe the end of Monday's practice in this sense, but Tuesday for sure. And then Wednesday during shoot around. We'll have the video prepared that we'll watch on Tuesday and Wednesday after shoot around. We don't hand out paper scouts. So we do a lot of our scouting reports verbally and through video. So all the guys will have access to the video clips, and a lot of the video clips will have, player stats, who the players are, tendencies, et cetera, that go on to personal scouting reports. And like I said, we're looking, they're more athletic than us, 100% across the board. They're bigger, they're quicker. So what we're looking for is how to break them down, what shots we want them to take as opposed to what shots they want to get. And I think lastly is how to slow them down a little bit and keep them out of transition.
So let's talk a little bit about the conveyance of everything. I think you were pretty detailed in everything you had to say, but I do remember the Friday, Saturdays in that league as being unique to what they are in the CCAA because of travel partners. So like you said, you do get to see them play the teams that you just played, which is kind of cool, right? Like you understand the way you match up against the team that you just played, and then you watch how they match up against them, and then you can implement change. Let's talk about delivery to your guys. You don't give a paper copy, you do give them film. That film is got stats in it, like you're saying. Is it all matchup based that you're delivering? Are you showing them sets and matchup? And if it's matchup based, does everyone get every player, so to speak? Or is it like, Mike, you're going to be guarding this player, so I'm only going to send you this kind of stuff?
No, everybody gets everyone. We're pretty, like, we don't really specify, like, this is your matchup. per se.
Interesting.
We're,
Right.
we're very like non-traditional in that sense that a lot of guys play a lot of different positions.
Right.
And often we like to switch matchups based on like the point guard doesn't always guard the point guard.
Right.
And we'll get to that a little bit more in the transition aspect of things because I know that we're going to touch on that later.
Hmm.
But you know, we want everyone to know everyone because there's one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to switch handoffs in this game, and we were going to switch some ball screens as well. So there was going to be some cross matches there that they needed to know. And typically we switched 1 through 4, and a lot of different guys played the 4 for us. So we thought it to be more beneficial that everybody knew everyone in that sense.
So going back to Tenor a little bit, let's. I don't often talk about specific matchups, but Tenor, who is now at Florida State, as you mentioned, he's 7'1", 7'2", and in Canada, that is uncommon. First of all, to have a player 7'1", 7'2" playing in the league, but second of all, he was fairly skilled at that size. So you talk about your switching, and you're talking about certain actions that you wanted to run and doubling in the post, etc. How did you want to handle him within switches, especially if it created really strange mismatches?
Yeah, so we didn't want to switch with him because he was typically the 5. So we wanted in our ball screen defense and handoffs. We typically say switch 1 through 4. Some games will go 1 through 5 depending on who the matchup is. But if we did end up in a switch on him, the key was to front him all the way down. Okay, force the lob over the top and then come hard from the baseline side on the catch.
Right.
Like there was no waiting for dribbles because once he gets the ball above his head, we don't have that height. Like we just don't have that height to match up.
Right.
The one thing you can do is you can get under him a little bit when you sit on his legs and push him around because he doesn't have the most lower body strength, I would say.
Right.
I thought we did a good job in this game on him, and he still has 20 and 14 in the game,
Right.
which is funny. But I think he got a lot of his on second chances and a few breakdowns by our guys. But at the same time, I thought we made it tough for him too, which helped us. Like we were physical with him, and it helped us a little bit, I think, on offense because on defense he was a little bit tired, and just coming back from injury, I think he didn't have the same motor that he normally had.
Right.
Just working himself back into shape that way.
For sure. Makes sense. So let's talk about some of your general principles and how they apply to your scout if you change them from game to game or if you stick with like a standard, so to speak. So some of the things I sent you that, I usually ask people to speak on are, like you said, transition,
Yep.
how you guard blob slobs, or, the way that you play your screen coverage. Do you have a default coverage and you change it from game to game? Talked about this topically already, I suppose. And then things like your rebounding philosophy on the offensive side and the pace that you wanted to play at against these guys.
Yeah. So we wanted to keep them in the half court offensively. So when they're on offense, we wanted to keep them in the half court. When they get out in transition, that's when a close game turns into a blowout real quick, especially on the road. They start to get a few dunks. They get to the rim a bunch, and now they're a little bit more confident from the 3. So we wanted to keep them in the half court for sure, and make them play against a set defense. Our base ball screen coverage is 1 through 4 switch, and 5 is to keep the ball handler on his left. So on the left side of the court, we turn it into an ice or down.
Right.
And then on the right side of the court, we hard hedge or what we call a shock for 2 dribbles, and then we get back. I thought our ball screen defense was poor in this game, honestly. We got a little lucky in the sense that we gave up a ton of open shots, but they missed some layups as well. But sometimes that's what happens when you keep a team away from their strengths. And I thought we did a really good job in transition for the most part, and that probably helped because we made a ton of shots. So obviously it's harder to run after a make.
Right.
In terms of transition defense and our offensive rebounding philosophy, we send 3 to the glass. So we send our 5, our 4, and then one of our wings. to the glass, and then we have what's called a court balance. That is the safety per se. And he's back, and then we have our spillage guy, which is sort of halfway between where the court balance guy is and going to the glass. So anything that gets tipped out or anything, he's around the free throw line, top of the circle area. So we call him spillage,
Like that. Yeah.
which means then that whoever gets the outlet, that's his man no matter what.
Okay.
So there is no matchups. Like, you don't run to a man in transition, right? So our offensive rebounding philosophy then builds into our transition defense. So court balance has the rim. Obviously, he's the last guy back.
Right.
The three guys who go to the glass then run back and to the paint first and then match. And the spillage guy has to stop the outlet or the first pass, basically.
Are your spillage and your safety always the same people?
Yes. So
Yeah.
when you're on the court in the five, you know if you're going to the glass or if you're court balance or your spillage.
Right.
Typically, game to game, it's actually the same people as well.
Right.
So guys have basically, so the one is usually court balance, right? And the two is usually the spillage guy. And then the 3, 4, 5 usually go to the rim. But we don't really have positions in that sense, because some of the guys who play the two are also good rebounders. So we'll
Right.
send them to the glass. And if a guy isn't a great rebounder, then he might be the spillage, or he's a really good defender. So he becomes the spillage guy because now he's picking up the ball in transition, right? So there's obviously different things that you can do out of that. But at the end of the day, that's our base coverage, I would say.
Nice. Just because I'm curious about defensive transition all the time. Of the 4 phases of the game, I would say it's the one that I'm the weakest at as a coach. Would you say that your spillage goal would be just to slow it down, or is he trying to turn somebody a couple times, or make him change side of floor, or not change side of the floor?
No, we try to keep him to one side just so we can load up to that side of the court. So we want to keep it, sideline to whatever side the outlet is. We want to slow him down and not let him get ahead of steam, which sometimes means, stepping up to stop the ball, and making him play a little bit, but like not standing flat footed and waiting for him to come to you is sort of like guarding him, right? And the rest of the guy's job is to get back and make a wall in transition and sort of don't give that initial ball handler any drive lines to the rim.
Were there any in this game particular people that you in your scout wanted to make your guys very aware of to locate in transition? Like, so I've heard the term, find most dangerous. I've heard the term, immediate match, et cetera, but you said the other 3 are retreating to the paint and then fanning out. Is there anybody in this game, or are there games that exist where you don't send them to the paint and they're trying to match with that person immediately?
Yeah, I mean, when we're real scared of them from the 3 and not scared of them getting to the rim. And I think in this game is a perfect example of, when we were making runs, we were forcing them into jump shots. When we were getting run on, it was because we were giving them layups and dunks at the rim. So like our key was like, take away the easy stuff, make them make shots. Because of their athleticism and size advantage, we wanted to keep them out of the paint. So, we wanted to find Tavon Coco, who's their point guard, early in transition, because he is a prolific scorer. We wanted to find Jaden Frederick on the wing because he's a big scorer as well.
Yeah.
A guy that well, actually.
Yeah, I coached him at York, that's for sure.
And then we wanted to find Tanner, the big dude, because we didn't want to get easy post position on a seal like early in the possession. We wanted him to have to work for position, and so those 3 guys were sort of our focus, and then the rest, Kevon Small, a couple of their other wing players, if they took a 3 within, not that they're not good shooters, but if they took a 3 within 4 or 5 seconds of the shot clock, like that was sort of what we were giving up, I guess, as opposed to straight line drives to the rim for layups.
Love it. All right, let's move a little bit to in-game here. You mentioned, sort of in what we've been talking about, there were certain things that you didn't feel you did well. Let's start with, what are you tracking on the bench? And during ATOs, during end of quarter, at the half, what are you looking at specifically to give you indicators of, hey, we need to make a change here, or we're doing this well and we're not doing that well, et cetera? What are the things that are important to you?
Yeah, I think 3 stops in a row are key.
The
I've heard the term
defensive kill, or the
turkeys.
turkey, I've heard
Yeah,
it called.
yeah, a few of those. 3 stops in a row allows you to really get into a groove, and like I said, easier to run, obviously, off of stops. We're looking at turnovers big time, because turnovers, give them easy buckets. And then we're looking at the rebounding battle, because for us to have any chances, we had to, break even with them on the glass, and then we ended up doing that. I think we only lost the rebounding battle by 2. But yeah, like those are the things, those are the key stats for us. And then, obviously in game, we're looking at, okay, where are our matchups right now? Who do we want on the court when they have these 5 guys on the court?
Right.
Do we have enough ball handling right now if they get into pressure, which they did a little bit. So we had to play some of our ball handlers together just so that we could, you don't want to get stuck with only one ball handler. Then you got these athletic guys that can really guard right up in them the entire time, so we're looking at that a lot. Yeah, I think for the most part, game to game, those are the things we look at. And then obviously in game, there's specific things that we look for, depending on the matchups.
Right. So, I mean, as far as Canadian staffs go, I would say that you guys are fortunate to have one of the bigger staffs.
We are.
Being longtime assistant there, having a really good feel for how John Campbell works, et cetera. Are you doing a lot of tracking of stuff, or are you not? And, eye testing, getting an idea so that you can provide feedback, and letting other coaches track certain things.
Yeah. So we actually have a great tool that we use on the bench. Typically we only have it at home games, but we also have it like at the close road games where we have somebody who can tag. So we have live tagging on the bench where I have an iPad, and I can just, like, as soon as the play's done, it gets tagged and it shoots right to my iPad. And then I can, go back and see, certain things. I've sort of taken on that role a bunch.
That's cool. I didn't know you guys were doing that at all. That's neat.
Yeah, it's been, we've had it now for 2 years. And it's really helped, so I can just quickly press the star, which favorites it. And then at halftime, I can have 3 stars to go show Evan and 3 stars to go show Chris. And, like, just show them quick film. Look, this is what they're doing on ball screen. Look, this is how they're coming, attacking you in the press. What's open here? What's open there?
Right.
This read on defense. Like, it's just something quick that we use sparingly, but like importantly, at the same time. So we look for the important things and just try to get that across. And it gives us so it's funny because sometimes guys come off, like, I didn't miss that. That wasn't me. And I'll be like, well, kind of was, because we have instant feedback, right? They got used to it, which is helpful too, right? They got used to it and they're like, let me see that, and then so I'd show them the play and they're like, oh yeah, okay, I missed that, or I should have done that. That kind of stuff is helpful once they got used to it as well.
It's I know that a lot of our friends south of the border are using things like sports code and live coding the game. So I know what a tremendous help it can be to be able to track some of that stuff for sure. And of course, actually show them. Like, it ends a lot of discussions that don't need to happen, where it's actually, it was you. Here it is, right there.
For sure.
What about like lineup matching and substitution patterns and all that? Do you guys go in with some sort of script? How are you monitoring it during the game? Does the same coach do it for every game? Or if it's your scout, are you going to have more of an input as to who should be in, et cetera?
No, I think everybody's been empowered by the head coach to, give their suggestions.
Right.
He's in charge of the subs, so he makes the subs, but we often suggest, or we'll talk about it quickly, like, okay, what do we need out there? Who needs a break? Who needs to get back in the game? We don't go in with a script. So we're not a team that has a sort of, you come out at 6, go back in at 3. Like, we don't have that, basically.
Right.
Some games, if we're down a few rotation guys where we need to get, we played a couple games this year with only one point guard, and our backup point guard got hurt early in the season. So we were using some of our wings as our de facto point guards. But that wing was also a starter on the wing. So we would have to get him out early in order to then get him back in as the backup point guard. So that we had to think a little on that rotation, just because we didn't want to leave a guy out there for 10 minutes straight. And, sometimes it ends up happening depending on how the game's going and everything. We don't have any hard, fast rules in that way, but we do think about, who can play in this game and who can't. There's certain matchups where, guys are better to play in this type of game as opposed to that type of game. Right. And that's not to say that the guys who aren't better in those games don't get on the court still, but it might affect the amount of minutes that they get.
Like it. You mentioned that there were some things, like not doing a great job on particular screen coverages or whatever. Do you think, hindsight is 2020 is the expression. I'll say that all the time when I'm introducing this question, I suppose. But do you think there were anything or any things that were missing from your scout that could have better prepared your guys or led them to make better decisions, for this particular game when you're looking back on it? Or do you think it was just maybe sort of an execution problem in certain things?
I think some of it was execution. I think we could have went over their stuff. So the one thing that we find tough for us when we're playing an athletic team is how fast they run some of their stuff. So they were running a horn set where they come off the horns, quick handoff, and right back into a ball screen.
Right.
And when we're walking through that, everything seems like it's cool, it's okay, right? When we got into the game, we screwed up that 2 or 3 times, and this was early in the season. So our coverages weren't amazing. We weren't sharp. I think we did a decent job scrambling afterwards. And like I said, sometimes you get a little lucky when you give up a couple open shots.
Right.
But I think the one thing that we could have done better was recreating the speed at which they ran, the tempo at which they ran their offense in practice to give them that sort of game speed, the game speed reps that they needed to succeed in that game specifically.
So then this takes me off on a bit of a tangent before we get to a little bit of video, but in terms of doing something like that in your practices, and I've been privy to this answer having spoken with you before, but in your practices, do you guys always play like your first 7 against your second 7, or do you mix up all of your players so that everybody's getting reps playing with everybody, so to speak?
Yeah, so we mix on certain days of the week usually, and then towards the end, or like the game, the day before game or whatever, we end up, sort of the starters versus the bench guys. But we mix a lot as well, just because we like everyone to be able to develop a rapport in that sense,
For sure.
and when you don't really have a set rotation or a set, 8 that you play typically, like some guys are going to get more minutes in games that they're not going to really plan on. So they got to be able to play with a couple of the starters as well.
Do you find from like a volume intensity standpoint, again, a bit of an offshoot or a tangent, I suppose, but do you find that if the goal is to recreate the speed in which your opponents are playing at, that can have a negative influence on some of your guys who are going to go in and play, longer minutes in those particular games?
Possibly, but I think there's a little bit of trade-off as well. Like if you practice a long time, then you'll be able to play longer in a game. We want our guys to be in shape, and we want them to sort of, be used to being on the court. Like I know there's lots of load management stuff, and we talk about that as well.
Well, I mean, as I said prior, like you guys are privy not only to having one of the larger staffs in terms of, basketball in Ontario and probably in Canada too. But I mean, the Goldring Center where you're at, for those of you who don't know, who are listening, Mike's school, U of T, has got one of the better kinesiology programs in North America, and they've got all kinds of resources that are there to help them do their job efficiently, kind of what it is. So obviously there's a lot of experts you can consult throughout the process, right?
Yeah, we and like as the season goes along, we tend to shorten practice a little bit. We talk with the guys all the time, like, how are you feeling today? Like, do you need like less up and down today, like less contact? Like what do we, we'll talk to the team leaders to get sort of the temperature of the locker room in that sense. Early in the week, coming off two tough games, we tend to go shorter and more focused on certain concepts. And then, Tuesday, Wednesday night are usually the nights that we go a little bit longer. We have Thursday morning practice, which is typically shorter because guys have to go to class and everything. And then Friday, we'll have shoot around. So that's how a typical week goes.
Right. Love it. I'm going to move into some film. I think it's a natural segue, unless anybody has some questions for Michael before I do that. Please feel free to shoot ahead. But if not, I'm going to get into this. Let me get set up a little bit here. Are we good with that size, Mike? Can you see that?
Yeah, that's good.
And like I said, each one of these clips I'll go through 3 times. Just, some people listen on the podcast instead. So I'll play it once for everybody to take a look at in the room. Then I'll go through it a second time and try and describe it for them. Third time, all yours. Talk to me. Tell me what you see. So first one's an easy one, but sometimes lends itself to some debate. But this is just basically you guys are putting it in after a make, and you're getting down court, and raw wire shoots transition 3. So I'll run that back one time. So we come up the left side. They're showing a little bit of pressure, but it's, I think, mostly for show. They don't get to the trap, and he shoots a left wing 3-point shot. So the question I ask all the time is transition 3, yay or nay? And, like in terms of shot selection, shot spectrum, how does that work for you guys?
Yeah, so we're okay with transition 3s, and we make a couple in this game too. I would have liked to have seen him with his feet more set if he wanted to take this.
Right.
I would have also liked to seen him get deeper. And that's a little bit on our guards too. Our guards didn't wait enough. So typically in our half court press break, the guy inbounds and runs opposite corner. So he should have been deeper in the corner and then coming back to the ball, which would have allowed him to then set his feet and get his feet set on this. And this is something that we worked on against the pressure, was sort of that pass across and then up the wing, because in the back, they had their 2 big guys who didn't want to leave the paint.
Right.
So we worked on this, but the one thing is our timing was bad. So if you just run it back sort of to the beginning of the clip and just stop it right there. Okay, so you see where Eric is at this point is he's sort of still in the backcourt. What we wanted on this was for Chris, who's our point guard there with the ball, to engage the 2 guys that are near him, engage him, and for number 9, Evan, to get behind the ball to then get that pass. And that gives Eric 2 more seconds to get up the court, which then allows him to come back towards the ball to get that with his feet set. And then if he's open, then he can shoot it.
Right.
So this reversal pass comes a tiny bit too early. And now the space between Eric and Evan isn't long enough for Eric to get his feet set. So I'd like to see him catch it on the 3-point line where he doesn't now have to turn his body to get square and then shoot it.
So I think that is a perfect transition to the next clip that I have. But before I move to that and ask you the questions on that, you say that as a team, you're okay with the transition 3. Are you okay with it for every player? And are you okay with it at all times during the game?
We're typically not okay with it if you're 1 for 10. Or, if you're a bad shooter, like we don't want you shooting 3. Like guys know that whether or not they should be shooting the 3 or not, right? They know that just sort of from our conversations and that kind of thing. And typically we don't run into that a ton. Our best shooters, we don't give them directive per se, but we'll encourage them to do certain things at certain times, especially, coming into a timeout. If one of our good shooters is, 2 for 7, something like that, I'd be like, okay, go get a free throw. See if you can get
Right.
yourself going from the outside a little bit, right?
Right.
Make a play for somebody else to get yourself going now. Get a big rebound in traffic. Get an offensive rebound put back, to see the ball go through the net. And we talk about this all the time, but, some of our wings, I talk to them about the 8 and 4 all the time. If you get one offensive rebound put back per quarter, you have 8 points and 4 rebounds at the end of the game without doing anything else.
Right.
And that's a big motivator sometimes for guys, because they want stats, right? They want to be able to look back on the box score and be like, yeah, I had 12 and 10, or 15 and 8. That's a big motivator for some players. Obviously it's better when you win, but personal motivation is a weird thing for a lot of different guys.
I like that a lot, actually. Like the 8 and 4 is a decent game. I mean, it's not a great game, but like if you have your 2 or 3 best scorers scoring what they're supposed to, and you come in and you've, like you said, 1 per quarter, you've done your job. You have a decent game, right?
And you've done nothing else. You've literally done nothing else. You've touched the ball 4 times and you have 8 and 4. So like that's huge, right? Like, especially if you're, you only average 7. If you like, that's huge for us. So that's something that we want to look at.
I like the fact too that you're not, and I've mentioned this on other run it backs, but you're not making that correction, so to speak, in game in terms of the shot selection. You're not telling a guy don't shoot the ball, but you're giving them more sort of like, like a prescription, so to speak, of like, hey, like we like these shots, they're okay, but they're not for everyone all the time, and you earn it a bit more throughout practice and the duration of the year, etc.
Yeah, and for instance, like in this sense, I would show this to Eric when he came off. I'd show it to him and be like, look, your feet not set, so this is a good time. If you just run the clip to when he catches it, okay, this is a good time to rip baseline here, okay, because the big dude's under the rim and he's not leaving the paint. Okay. And then I think, we'll have our big guy coming, crashing the top of the circle there. And then we'll have our drift on the weak side. And then we'll have our one more coming to the 45 there for 2 good shooters, and I think this is a good time to make a play for somebody else, as opposed to taking a quick shot early in the game where you haven't got your rhythm yet. So I think that's, I would show him this, and when you stop it at this frame, it's pretty evident. But I feel like live in game, you don't often see everything like you would in this, showing this simple frame here. And they kind of get that helps them a little bit with that.
So this, as I said, is a good clip to segue into the next clip. And this is, again, against some full court pressure. This clip's a little bit longer. And I think my question on this was the shot selection when you get deeper into possessions against full court pressure that turns into a half court type deal. So it's gone through one time. We'll take a look at it again. Basically, you guys get it into the front court. Similar idea of it's a 2-2-1. A little bit more time with this pass, as you were talking about, from Evan. And when we get it into the front court, it's not really a play that happens, in my opinion. So your left slot, you get into a ball screen type action. There's a fill behind. Chris fumbles the pass a little bit, and then it goes high post, and we're deeper in the shot clock, and we shoot the contested pull up. So for me, I personally don't love this shot, but really I think where I was going with this clip more than anything was talk to me about what you coach or how you teach dealing with possessions where there's full court pressure and you're later in the shot clock and you haven't really had an opportunity to run some of your stuff.
Yeah. So one of the keys that we wanted to use against their pressure was an early ball screen. And if you just stop it when you get to the ball screen level,
for sure.
But this is a good timing. Like we had better timing there, but you can see sort of what they get back into is a modified 2-3, but the big guy doesn't want to come out. Right. So you can see him coming off here a little bit, like he comes off this and he's open. There's open space there. He decides not to take the shot that I think he should have taken, and he takes it later in the game. But he's got to get into the space there and just shoot the free throw line pull up, in my opinion, because he has it beat, right? But he hesitates, and then we fumble the pass, so that's bad execution. At this point, our spacing is terrible because we don't have corners filled.
Right.
We get the high post flash, and what's supposed to happen here is we're supposed to get a back cut from the wing. And
So I have the exact clip that would explain what is supposed to happen from later on in the game.
Yeah. So we're supposed to get a back cut from the wing, and then the point guard's supposed to come back off a handoff here and sort of play two-man game with a pop. But the one thing that we did want to look at is facing up against the big guy and shooting the free throw line jumper just to force him to come away from the paint a little bit.
Right.
And that was a point of emphasis. And I think it was fairly noticeable when you watch the full game film of how many free throw line jumpers we took.
Right.
And this was very matchup specific because we don't normally emphasize that shot a bunch. But against their zone and their sort of what they played like a one-man zone basically with the big dude.
Right.
So that was open, and that's something that we had noticed. So we emphasized it a little bit when it was open, but in this sense, we should have ran our concept-based stuff. So this should have been back cut, handoff, and then make a play off that. And I guess, we'll see it later. What should have happened.
Can you talk a little bit about what you just said in terms of that shot is not really one that you emphasize a lot? So, I mean, a few people on this call know that I've recently had some big debates about, the shot selection spectrum and like the contested two not being a good shot. Like, what is your theory overall of the 15 to 18-foot jump shot against a 2-3 zone being the way to break it? Do you I know that Tenora is in the center here and you're trying to get him to step up, but like against a 2-3 overall, what's your feeling on that and how would you approach it typically?
Well, I mean, we're not pros. So the way analytics works the best is when you have good players that actually, make shots at an average-ish level. Analytics isn't just shoot a ton of threes even though you never make them. Like, that's not what analytics is. It's
right.
Can you shoot above average on a shot that's worth more points, right? And so we tend to try to find assisted field goals. Assisted field goals are always worth more in our practices, right, as opposed to assisted field goals, layups, and we don't shoot free throws in practice, but fouls are the things that we're looking for.
Right.
Assisted threes are great. Assisted free throw line jumpers for the guys who don't necessarily have the range to shoot the threes are sort of down the list a little bit. And like I said, very matchup specific to this game. And then dribble jump shots are sort of down on the totem pole.
Like it.
But yeah, that's sort of what we look at. The one thing that I would say is we shoot a ton of threes based on, what our strengths are as a team. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. We made 16 in this game, and that's probably why we won the game.
Right.
But we got a ton of good ones too. Like, there's a very high correlation to getting good threes as opposed to, some of the tougher ones that we shoot in other games. And that was a big point of emphasis for us in sort of our debrief after this game is, we were 16 to 37 from three. How many of them were good shots? And we showed a bunch of film on it, and they were good shots. They were drive kick, swing, maybe another drive kick, feet set, no bounce, let it go. Those are the ones we wanted.
Right. Love it. So then this one, I suppose, piggybacks on that a little bit. This is Ryerson on offense. And I think the reason that I pulled this was this possession gets very deep in and you end up actually with the steal. So I'll go through it just for anybody who's listening. Basically, there is a Spain pick and roll action that happens by Ryerson. They pass to the left wing. They get nothing out of it. You're still, pretty good in terms of your rotations, maybe a little bit too open on the backside. But then we start getting late shot clock where they've pitched it back out. They get a second side skip. They attack and you guys double it. And then they drop off for the big and you end up getting a good block out of it. So really, I think my question why I put in this particular clip was, what are sort of your defensive tenets when you're getting later in shot clock? What are your teaching points that you're giving your guys as to how to maintain focus? How to they've rotated a few times. How to at that point still be like, hey, we're okay, and just play it out towards the end, so to speak.
Yeah, this is just a poorly, like conceptual wise, this is poorly run by us. I mean, so just stop it there. So basically what we wanted, and I don't know why you didn't shoot this, to be honest, but so if you just go back to the level of the screen. So what we wanted here was for him to fight over, and he runs, like there's a ton of space there. They didn't set great ball screens under Spain action. They wanted the pop. So we told our big guy to just not get hit on the back screen, be on the ball side, and we wanted the guy on the ball to get, oh, like there's a ton of space there. He should be over the top, no problem on this.
Right.
Okay, but he runs directly into the screen. Okay, fine. We didn't want to leave the pop guy, obviously, so you can see our point guard stick with him as he comes up. Our wing guy actually makes a good read on this by coming to the ball, forcing the pass here to the corner, and we make a good switch onto the ball.
So that like you said, your point guard making a read, that happening is sort of what gets you balanced again, in my opinion.
Yeah, correct. And we make a good read here to step up to the ball there by 15. So that's a good job. Okay, and now they get it swung.
Here's your skip here.
And this is the killer for us in that sense. So this closeout, first he goes for a steal that he's never going to get, which is crazy, right? Puts himself off balance. That's a rash, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So what we're supposed to do in this sense is force the ball back to the middle, because we're forcing left here. So we want it to come back to the middle. So his closeout is supposed to be on the opposite side of the guy's body. So this is a complete breakdown in our concepts. What doesn't break down is our effort. So he gets beat on this closeout, but he's the guy who gets back into the play now to then get the steal or block, however you want to categorize it. So like lucky, but also a little bit of effort by us to cover for our mistakes, I would say.
So as a coach, late shot clock, would you say you're not happy with, you're not married to the result, and you're not happy with the execution all the way through, but you're happy pretty much with the effort from your guys, and that's something that you would reinforce, I would assume?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we show this, we're going to show this in our bad defensive clips after the game. But what we're going to emphasize also in our bad concept clips is it doesn't go into our bad effort clips, because our effort is decent in this. We actually make a few good second efforts, and that's helpful, because we're never going to be perfect. We don't have that mindset of like, we're going to play perfect defense the entire game. That's not doable. Nobody plays perfect defense for an entire game. So how do you make up for mistakes is always going to be effort for us. And we preach effort a ton to our guys. We're often not one of the most talented or athletic or any of those type of teams. So we got to live in the effort sphere a little bit more than other teams as well.
I'm sorry to interrupt you there.
Yeah,
I actually wish that James Koval was on this call, because he coaches at a highly academic school as well. He's a former guest on the show. And for those of you who don't know, like the University of Toronto is one of the most prestigious schools in Canada. So the gentlemen that you work with are always going to be, usually for the most part, very academically based, intelligent people. So it helps for sure when you're trying to convey concepts and all that.
Definitely. So yeah, we would show this sort of concept wise, no good, but great effort to make up for it, and a little bit of luck here and there, but sometimes that happens, teams get lucky against us too. So there's some give and take there.
So the next one, there's not a whole lot on this. This was just, my note is the Magetti type cut. I'm wondering if this cut is scripted or if it just kind of happens. So basically we exchange on the help side, and we get a ball screen from the right slot. And then there's kind of just like this cut in from the top here, or sorry, from the left wing here, at the same time that the lob happens. He does actually end up missing the layup, but that wasn't the focus here. I'm wondering the help side action in terms of the 45 cut and this sort of Magetti cut that happens over the block here. If there are triggers that I didn't see, if it's an automatic, or if the player, again, looks like a rash, just kind of made a decision to go on it.
Yeah, so this is an automatic for us, especially in this game because of their ball screen coverage. Um, we wanted to take away the low tag.
Right.
So one of the things that we did, if you just stop it on the, so that right there, this is supposed to be a pin down on the low tag, and we get a forced curl off this, and then a pop by our
Right.
shooter who's 6. And we've spoken about this before. But what it does is it forces them to make a decision about who stays in the tag now. So who is it? Does the low guy stay in the tag where he is under the rim right now, or does he follow his man out? And the guy who's supposed to be guarding the guy who sets the pin down, does he stay in? Like, how does that work for them? And this does exactly what it's supposed to do for us in this scenario, but we just missed the layup, obviously. And we get the one side lift from the corner with good spacing. So everything works out really well. We just need to make this layup.
What is the trigger in terms of the timing? Is it the point of the screen, or is it on the approach of the screen that you should be initiating that action?
So just as he's running towards, we want that guy to be vacating that top spot. So there's no nail help here. There's no elbow help.
Right.
So if we get a good chance at drive line here, we have a chance. And typically what happens when you really put a lot of pressure on that free throw line area is both the guys who are on the weak side or coming towards the ball side now stay in, and the guy who pops out, who set the pin down, who's now popping to the corner, he's going to be open for a 3.
Right.
Typically, when you put a ton of pressure on that, we don't need to put pressure on the free throw line here because we have the wide open lob, which is basically what we want. But most teams don't give this up. But we got lucky here and unlucky at the same time that we missed the layup.
Yeah. So I think that everything about this really works because obviously, I mean, look how open this is. That should be going down, so to speak, timing wise. But then, as you said, sometimes you don't get the result that you wanted. As a complete aside, this has nothing to do with anything. I actually just noticed something about synergy that's really weird. These 2 blue dots that go in, I've never noticed that before. That has something to do with there being a note or an annotation on it. 3 F's.
I don't know where that comes from. Never seen it.
What my notes.
You're cutting out. Is that just me that he's cut out for, or everybody else?
No, it's everybody else.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, I think it might be Menelik. I think he might have froze.
Yeah. There he is. He's going to come back on now. I'll be right back. I just got to check something quick.
All right, so I'm here. Is Mike gone?
He said no, he said he had to go check something real fast. He said he'd be right back.
Perfect. All right, I'll pause the I'm going to start the recording again. Welcome everybody. Sorry about that wonky internet apparently here in Canada. And let's get back into a share screen. And Mike, I'm going to start that clip again. I'm assuming you probably didn't catch it from what happened there. But this was basically you guys attacking left slot, turns into a pretty interesting set that's basically like a floppy type action or a single double type action. So you get swing, swing, and then here's your pin down up top, and then you get into the single double. So, walk me through the actions, walk me through the results that you want when you call this, give me some other alternate possibilities. Just sort of give me the coaching perspective of this set.
Yeah, so this is part of our flow offense. So 4 out, 1 in, big man opposite here. So we'll go through the trail and reverse. So the funny thing is, like, our 2 guard, if you just stop it there, 9 is our 2 guard, and he just sort of gets into the 4-man spot, and the 4-man's the one who now has the ball up at the top, which is, we encourage that to get into sort of our sets, regardless of what position you are. But we get into the single double off of this, and it forces them to communicate. So what are they going to switch this? Or are they not? It's 2 guards coming through. There's another guard there coming up. So we end up getting what we want out of this, and then a great hard rip baseline here with no help side engaged. And then we end up getting it with a wide open layup. So a couple different options off of this. If you just get back to where Arash catches at the top. Okay, so on this right here, the guy who passes it, okay, goes first always. So he comes off, and he has his decision is go weak side. Okay, if he's being trailed like he is, he's supposed to go weak. Okay, if the guy jumps high, then you can come back out and go straight to the corner. Okay, and then the other guy just plays opposite of whatever side he goes to. If neither of them are open on the wings, then we get the concept: flash the post to the elbow, you go back cut, you go hand off with the point guard, and play sort of penetration after that.
Love it. It's a good set.
Pardon me? We really like it just because the ball moves side to side, and it forces the defense to get into communication and different changes to help side. If he catches it there and has no rip, we get a sprint ball screen from the weak side post.
Right. What about the opposite side drift? Are there any actions that allow you to fan out towards filling the opposite side drift as opposed to lifting all the way above?
So on the initial catch, or sort of which aspects?
So
which
here's
point?
your catch here.
Yeah.
The guy that's gone first. I do think that one of the things that you said is that he does have the option to fill opposite.
Yep.
Okay, so then that was what I missed. Sorry.
Yep.
I was asking basically, does he have the option of getting to there instead of filling behind? But
He does.
it kind of made sense
And
in my mind after I asked the question.
conceptually, he should be there, but I think he sees that it's wide open layup, so he just kind of
Right.
doesn't do what he's supposed to do in that sense.
Like it. All right, so we're getting into them running some Spain stuff here. So they're coming down. The ball goes back to the point. We get a top ball screen going towards the left. And then they just sort of exchange. They don't even really set the Spain screen. You get a long closeout. He shoots the shot and misses. That's actually funny because I'm just now noticing that it's Jalen Butler that's involved, another player that I've coached. But give me an idea. Obviously, their Spain action is on your scout. How did you want to defend it? How do you think you did in this clip versus what you wanted to do?
Yeah.
And is there anywhere that you want to force the ball during those Spain actions?
Yeah. So this is the initial point of attack. We want to get it to his left hand,
right?
Just to make passing harder up top. So we typically force left anyway. So if you just stop it right there. So we do an okay job here of fighting over the top. We don't run directly into the screen and die. But this is what I had talked about before, is sort of our point guard guarding the guy in this like the Spain action. So I don't know what number Malik is, but the guy in the middle of the paint.
Right in here.
Yeah. He's supposed to stay attached there. Okay. But instead he wanders over to the side of where the ball is, and that opens up the reversal. He's supposed to stay attached. Our big man is supposed to stay away from the back pick. You can see him looking at it right now, and just provide a wall to the rim.
Right.
Okay. So there's no back cut there. We're set here. We know what we're doing. Everything is good. And then our point guard is not doing what he's supposed to be doing. Like our guy on the ball and our bigger in good spots. The point guard is supposed to be attached to the roll guy coming up. Right. And then our wing player is supposed to be sort of front rim to take away any lob at the rim.
So provided he's an excellent passer, the thing that you're looking to sort of give away is the skip second side and play against the closeout, send it back middle.
With a left-handed pass.
Right.
We want to put some ball pressure on it. Now, again, so we make a mistake here. Mistake is shot. Okay, so we get two guys closing out to the ball, but watch the effort here by 6 to come back and get a rebound that's contested.
Right.
And that's the sort of thing, again, we're going to say, okay, bad concepts here, by multiple people in this, but, we saved the possession by coming back with a second effort to come and get the ball with a rebound. And we made multiple efforts in this game much more often than we had in a couple of the other games that we had played. So this was encouraging, I think, at this point in the season.
Nice. It's the downtown quarrel. That's why the effort is high, right?
Yeah, maybe. Could be.
I mean, for anybody who doesn't know, like I mentioned, these schools are very close geographically, but a lot of players on both teams would obviously have a lot of family and friends at these games. So they're playing, the stakes are a little bit higher, so to speak, of course, right?
So, just sort of some history. When I played from 03 to 08. We beat them. We hadn't lost, we beat them 21 times in a row, I think, between 03 and I think 2010, maybe. We beat them 21 times in a row. And then since we're 2-18 since that time against them. So we've been sort of, one team's been dominant and the other one hasn't for a long time.
Right.
So, this is the first time we had beat them in a long, long time, after having blown a couple games where we were winning late. We blew leads and there was just a lot of craziness, but yeah.
For sure. Okay. So, from having speaking to me, this is going to end up in there. I mean, obviously, but backcourt sideline out of bounds, walk me through it. How often do you get it? Remarkable that you could probably steal a basket or two in a game with it, but take me through the concept here.
Yeah. So we get this once a game somehow. I have no clue how, but yeah, we do. We get it once a game. So basically what we do, if we just go back to the beginning there and just stop it. So
I went too far. Sorry.
Yep. Right there. Okay. So our best finisher or our most athletic dude is the one setting the screen for our point guard. Our 5-man is lifted there right in front of the scoreboard at the sideline to take away any help at the rim. Our 4-man is standing on the R right there, ready to set a back pick or to basically just get in the way of the guy who's screening for the point guard's man, to give him a chance at the lob over the top, which we end up getting. So you can see as soon as he's level there, this is a throw over the top because there's nobody at the rim right now.
Right.
So it's an easy lob over the top. And, we want this to be an and one, basically. He's wide open. He should dunk this off 1 foot. But he goes 2, ends up missing the dunk. But he was a rookie and, early in the year. But we got 2 or 3 dunks off this in the season after this game.
Love it.
We get it all the time.
I've mentioned to you before, I love this play for sure. Do you work on this pass frequently in practice?
Yeah. We work on it. Not usually 5-on-5, just because we're guarding our own set, so we know what we're doing. But yeah, we work on long passes, and we get guys out of bounds who can actually throw a pass.
Right.
And basically the key is to just throw it into space here and let him run onto it. It's like throwing a deep ball to a receiver, right? He's just got to be able to catch it on the run and get it to the rim. So the counter to this, because everyone knows, we want this lob. So if you stop it right there, okay. So what ends up happening a lot of the time is the 4-man guy drops all the way back into the backcourt to take away the lob. Right. So now our 4-man flashes to the ball, and typically the point guard's man denies that first screen, because we don't want them to set a good screen there. What we want is to let him through to now set up the second part of this play. So after the 4-man sets this back pick and his man helps, he's supposed to flash to the ball, and then we run sort of a blind pig action here for the point guard to get it on a back cut. Because the defender is on the wrong side of him, now he has that entire area to play with.
Love it.
And we don't get it in this game because I think this was the only time we ran this against man. The other times we ran it was against their zone pressure. But yeah, we didn't get the back cut in this game, but we typically always get one of the two because it's unless they just don't play defense at all, and then we just enter it to the point guard and run up and
You're
call a
good
set.
because it's man at that point, and you can just play it. Yeah, love it, love it. The next one is talking specifically about what we were talking about in one of the earlier clips about just playing and within the concepts. So you get some side-to-side action. You get the ball into the pinch post, and they fake on the back cut, and they play on the handoff. And the second one, you get a pretty good attack against Tenor at the rim. So really, my question was, I mean, this is great. This is along the lines of Zoom action in the NBA and teaching guys how to play. So this isn't a pitch and follow type deal, but I sort of lump all of those together with the Zoom where it's, pass and get, pitch and pick, all of those actions sort of together where you incorporate the big man and just like sort of learning how to play, bypassing one, getting to the next one. How are you guys teaching this? What are the automatics on it? How do they get better at it? How much time do you devote to it? All that fun stuff.
Yeah. So if I'm not mistaken, this is out of a quarter. So we had called this play in the huddle.
Let me go right
here.
there. I think you're right. Yeah. Yeah. Right on.
So this is an automatic concept for us, for sure. So what had been happening was they were denying the wing, right? So when they deny the wing, and Coco doesn't deny Evan here, but he gets up the line. So typically when they deny the wing, we want that back cut, and we'll get that back cut a ton when they deny the wings.
Right.
But we don't end up getting it. But what ends up happening when Evan runs through here is he takes away all the help. And then, so as we hit this, now the big man has to stay and get set up here to guard the ball. But oftentimes he's a little bit late because he's thinking about our guy who's now popping behind that,
Right.
who can, he's not a great shooter, but he can make the three, and he makes a couple in this game too. But we actually get a really good strong drive here to the rim, and we get it up on the glass, put him in a bad spot, and we get a good finish there. But that concept of back cut handoff is an automatic for us. Out of our floppy stuff, out of any ATOs, out of any breakdown, actually, when the post flashes, we want back cut handoff, Zoom action like you talked about. That just becomes a sort of automatic, no call, just get into that almost every time.
And when you're teaching that, you're telling them what the triggers are going to be, and like you play in it a lot. Like
so we'll do that. We'll do that out of 3-on-0, 3-on-3, and then 5-on-5 in practice. Because when you practice against your own stuff, often guys tend to cheat and they'll go over screens on floppy. And when guys go over it, it's automatic flash back cut. And play off that, because when you're playing concepts, it's harder to cheat because it's something that's tough to guard, right? And this is, in my opinion, a tough action to guard. You got to be on point. You got to have sort of three guys playing exactly how you want it to be played.
And the big that gives the handoff here, will you ever roll him? Will you always pop him? Does he have the option to bypass the first and play a handoff game with a second? How does all that work? Yeah.
So if you just go back to before he hands it off here. Okay. So another option he has. So if this guy jumps his handoff here. So the guy guarding 6, if he fights over this, an option he has here is that's our point guard trailing at the top of the key here. So another option he has is to come and screen the point guard's man and sort of get into some Chicago, East-West Chicago action across the top, which we'll get into as well. And in that scenario, the 5 will always roll, and the 4 man, who is the one who gets the handoff here, will be the one who pops.
Like it. Defending drop, late tag or no tag, and ball side are my notes. So this is horns action by them. You guys are in a low show or a drop.
Yeah.
It's Tenor who's involved, so obviously you're pretty concerned about his height length. It doesn't look like you help from the other side. He gets a drop off and misses it, and you guys end up going the other way. So talk to me. Obviously you have the set. What are the goals in this one's action? How do you think you played it? And could it be better somehow?
Yeah, so initially, like, we screw this up right from the get-go. I think this is the wrong clip.
No, this is still it. It
Oh
starts
yeah,
at
sorry.
the sideline out of bounds. with
Okay,
the
so we
for
screw this up right from the get-go. So the guy guarding the corner closest to us, you see how he's in a deny? He's got to be in the paint right now.
Right.
So he's supposed to take away the lob. We're forcing left at the top. If he ends up getting right, it's going to be a switch, but because it's with the big dude, we don't want the switch. So you can see the guy closest to us guarding the wing, he's not supposed to be this far out. He's supposed to pull in here and just get an early bump, and we're supposed to stay home on the pop guy, who is a guard, who's their shooter at the top. But we don't. But we get a second effort here to get an okay contest, and he just bricks a dunk. Luckily.
Unfortunate. So the gentleman that's coming from the side closest to us, who becomes your weak side defender, so to speak. Let's say he gets in and he really tags that role pretty hard, and this driver makes, I think that is Coco, makes an incredible pass to the other wing. Are you Xing from the top? Or
We are. So 11's supposed to be dropping here as well, because he gets deep. He's supposed to be dropping. So, like, again, conceptually not great, but we make a few effort plays here to make up for it and get lucky too.
Nice. This is one of your sets that I like. Walk us through it for anybody listening. There's a flip up top action. They come off a ball screen towards the left slot. On the help side, there is a pin down that then turns into a cross screen coming from the ball screen that was in the left slot. And then they begin swinging, and it turns into top ball screen here. Is all of the start basically false action to get to this ball screen for you guys?
Yeah.
And then he rejects, and you guys get the corner three out of it.
Yeah. So this is all false. It's all, most of it is, at least. But typically in a game, so we call this our point action, which is our 5 out. So this is bad timing, because what we want there is we want a back cut from the corner. So a really good back cut here by 22, which could be open, and probably, in my opinion, you could probably throw this and it would be a dunk. But we typically don't look for that. Fine.
Right.
Okay. The other thing that we often got on this, because this is supposed to be a stagger up here for Evan coming to the top.
Right.
Sometimes the guy goes up the gut and Evan actually gets a wide open 3 on the fade, depending on where but the good teams all trail Evan. So fine. We get him into the ball screen at the top.
Right.
And this action actually, I really like, is just bringing that 4-man from the top to the corner now. And now it just gives him so much space here at the top to attack, both either side. And, because it's in the middle of the court now, you can kind of choose which way you go on this and which way you set the screen.
And the thing that I like about it too is just because your 4 is headed towards the corner, that X4 kind of turns his head to figure out like where he has to be in help. Is he going to be top help, or is he, going to be like on the bottoms type deal? Because he's got that second of indecision, I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then one thing I want to point out here, and one thing that we work a ton on in practice, is after you pass from the wing to the top, you must go tag the corner. And so this pass by 11 here to the top, and he tags the corner, which then opens up big time this reject and gives him a wide open 3 in the corner, which is what we want, right? So now it's a 2-on-1 with a flat guy, and he has to step in here, or else it's layup, and then we end up getting a wide open 3 here, corner 3 by one of our good shooters, and it's that helps us. Those are the type of threes we want: assisted corner 3s.
Love it. And to the point that you're making, I think it falls in perfectly to what I'm saying about that 4 turning his head, trying to figure out if he's helped. Because if they don't pull in off of ball side here, look who the help guy ended up becoming.
Yeah. And
look at how much time he lost trying to figure out if he was there or not.
Yeah, no, that was one of our better sets of the game for sure.
Love it. This is an attacking set. I thought it was a creative way to get into some Spain action. Again, just sort of, take me through it.
Yeah.
And so I will talk it through for anybody who's listening in. Basically, the ball starts in the right slot. There's a handoff action. Get into basically what becomes top ball screen, which is also the Spain action. You miss the back screen on it, but on the pop, he's wide open and he gets his three off of it.
Yeah.
So the handoff into the Spain action, give me an idea of what you're looking for, and do you run the variations of Spain just to keep people on their toes?
Yeah, so this is another one of our point actions, 5 out. So this is actually the counter to the last play. So the last play is a pitch and then a flip.
Right.
So this play, when you start to run that play a bunch, right, they start to deny the 5. And you can see the 5's open there on that back cut, right? Like he's open. And it's something towards the end of the year that we really emphasized. Throw the ball. There's nobody there to help, right? It's an open lane there. So right there, it's open. Like that should be a pass, wide open layup, right? And so we know that out of this, after you get this denial back cut, you go handoff, which is decoy per se, and then the point guard becomes the Spain guy. So it just requires a ton of communication from the defense, and they were trying to switch this out, and they don't end up switching it, and we end up getting an open 3 for one of our shooters.
Love it. It's great action. This action here to free up Tenor, interestingly enough, I'm actually working on doing playbooks for a lot of teams in my division. Just, we're possibly going to play again next year. So trying to get back to it a little bit, get back on the horse, as they say. And I'm noticing that Seneca has really stolen this action. So it was just intriguing to me to see it in here. But basically all it is we got a shallow cut. So we got wing entry and a shallow cut by the point guard, and then swing, and underneath at the same time, we're getting into cross screen, down screen to bring their big to the block. So, he gets the dunk here. You played it well a few times during the game. How do you want to play this ideally?
Yeah. So this was one of the plays we worked on. We know how to guard this. Everybody runs this. We have concepts. Okay. And again, this is a conceptual breakdown by us. This was the first time they had ran it, and this is sort of late third quarter, I believe. And we hadn't, when you don't see something for more than half the game, you kind of it kind of leaves your mind a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And then the first time they run it, you get stuck, right? So if you just go back a couple frames, so 15's on the high side here. As soon as the ball moves, he's supposed to jump to the ball here. Right. So as soon as this ball moves, he's supposed to jump, and now he gets stuck above him. What we want is him below, and he's supposed to jump under the screen here and meet him on the other side. 11 is supposed to be on the top side, okay, where he was, and he's supposed to bump him back down to the big man who's met him now on the other side. Okay. Why this breaks down is our guy doesn't go under, he goes over. And then as soon as he catches it, we have 2 guys available, but because he's so big and 2 feet in the paint catch, then it's over, right? We don't have the height to contest this or anything.
Right.
What I would have liked to have seen happen is I'd like to see 11 just stay in front of him there and yell at the 4,
deny.
Yeah, and just yell at the 4-man to switch out on his man who's coming off the pin down. But again, this, good speed, good tempo by them, really good set by them in terms of execution, and then they end up with the dunk out of it. So, kudos to them for that one.
This one, my note just says defending in low show/drop. I think all that happens here is just kind of getting hit with a reject, so to speak. So again, Tavon Coco, really good player, started at Laurier, was playing when I was coaching in U Sports. He gets the reject. Evan kind of gets caught on Tenor. And then you guys give up the 3. So I think what I was looking at was, what are sort of your principles for the X5 in terms of contesting this shot? And I mean, obviously Evan gets clipped, but what would you like to see him do better there?
Yeah. So initially on the point of attack, okay, he needs to be into the ball handler's body and not give him such a, he's way off him here, right? And the ball screen comes, as soon as he hears that, he's supposed to lock him. So this stance is bad. The second stance he gets into is better, but he's too late on it. So that stance is better, but he's too late on it. That's got to be his stance initially.
Right.
Our 5-man is not supposed to contest this at all. Okay. His job was to drop back and not let Tenor catch anything, on the run or anything like that. It's Evan's job to get over the screen here and rear view contest. And he doesn't he kind of dies a little bit and doesn't get his hand up. But the good thing about our 5 not contesting it is he ends up getting a body on the big guy rolling to the paint. And we actually get a couple good sandwich box outs there by our guys coming down to get this.
Perfect. And then, so in terms of the visual cue, you said your X5 is not supposed to do anything on this contest.
He's supposed to he's supposed to come back and not give up a lane to the rim.
So if Coco, their point guard, engages, how long do you want him to stay with the ball before getting back? Like, what is the cue to go back to the 5 for you? Just don't want him in behind you, so to speak, or?
Well, Evan's job is to, when he's good, to call him off. The guards, when he's good, he calls him off. Daniel's job is to not leave him until he actually passes the ball.
Right.
And our weak side guys are, you know, with Tenor is a little different because they can throw a lob to him. Most guys in our league don't catch lobs for dunks on the rolls, so they can pull in a little bit and take away any passes. Not the same way as it would be with the big guy rolling down the paint there.
For sure. And last one I got is, I mean, this is basically end of game situation, and all it really is you guys are up 7. It's intriguing to me because I think this 3 actually becomes more important than a lot of people give credit for it, in that you guys are ATO, sideline out of bounds, and you're up 7, as I mentioned, and I think, you know, there's like maybe under a minute left.
Shot clock's off.
Yeah. So the interesting thing to me is that if you don't make this, they make the next 3 down the floor, right? So it could have gone to 4. They could have played the foul game. It might have gotten a little bit closer, so to speak, etc. But, you know, walk me through this play. I'm sure you have a good memory of it, having asked for this, but for anybody who hasn't seen it, you get like your first sort of almost shuffle cut coming through, and then Eric comes through on the second one. And, you know, he pivots and hits a glass shot to put it up 10 and, you know, I mean, ideally secure the game. But that being said, exactly as you drew it up, what did you want to get out of it? All that fun stuff.
Okay. So for those that don't know, so when you play a team twice, they're part of our division. The tiebreaker at the end of the year, if you end up tied, is your plus minus between you and that team.
Right.
So,
as you and I both know, going back a few years against each other.
That's for sure. So the shot clock is off here, and this is very interesting to us as well on the bench. We wanted to hold the ball for the last shot here. So it's 7 or 9 or 8 or 10. That's how much we wanted to win by. The game is over here. This game's done. Okay. But we wanted to know that it's not less than 7 that we're going to win by. Okay. Eric, I don't know if he didn't hear us or how it worked out, but he ends up shooting it and making it. You know, he made it. Cool. But he's supposed to pull this out. We're supposed to get the last shot, and we were supposed to shoot it at the buzzer, based on the plus minus because this is the first time we were playing them. We wanted to sort of lengthen it as much as possible.
For sure. I think I'm just noticing it now, but I think Eric actually stepped out of bounds here.
Yeah, pretty close. The referee's right there too. So that was funny.
But they get it in, they go the other way, and like I said, they hit the 3, so it ends up being the 7 that you were talking about at the end of the game. So I mean, ultimately ends up being where it's supposed to be. And you know, it was a great game. It was an exciting game. As I mentioned, I was there checking it out. The rivalry has been covered as we've spoken what the game means to each of the schools for sure. If anybody has some questions they want to throw in, please feel free. But if not, that's pretty much what I've got for this week. Mike, a huge thanks. For those that would have no idea, Mike spends a lot of time getting me better as a coach, which I really appreciate. Takes his time every week and sits down with me for about an hour, just you know, giving me some mentorship, and I really, really appreciate that. So I was pretty excited that you were willing to do this and jump on. And for anybody who has listened and enjoyed this, I highly recommend checking out his podcast. There's a little bit more levity in it for sure, but it demonstrates a tremendous amount of knowledge from him and his friends that have taken the time to put it together. You know, it's an NBA based one. They talk a lot about the game and free agents and prospects and all that. And just thank you for your time. It means a lot to me. I've really appreciated. And as always, all the coaches that take their time to sit in and listen, thank you so much. Appreciate you. Beyond that, obviously, anybody who's been involved with the show along the way, tremendous thanks. It's been huge. Mike, thanks so much.
Yeah, I appreciate you too, man. I mean, you're big time. You're a slap in the glass guy now. So
I don't know about all
I'm
that.
happy to be on your show.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, I'm going to stop the recording. Please tune in next week. I'll see you guys. Mike, thanks again, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it too.